Approval of the minutes from the November meeting. Can I hear a motion
Make a
to
motion.
approve this minutes? And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, minutes are approved. Let's go to the budget report.
Well, it seems like it's just been a minute since we was together last time. Really, there's been very little change in our revenues. I think we've had about 2,500 additional in our revenues since our last meeting for a total year-to-date of 974,000. Our operating expenses have went up as expected. They would. And the actual is with everything, it's $52,092 and $758,000 for the year. We're doing well on our budget. As we've discussed, our revenues are running higher than what we would have anticipated due to increases in the gross receipts that we're receiving.
Oh, could you go back, please?
Yes.
If I may.
Sure.
One thing that maybe make this a little bit more understandable, at least to me, we've got the carry forward amount there, 3.4 million
Yes.
as part of total revenues. But that just shows that we've only collected 19%. Well, that doesn't make sense. It's really the first two lines that and I think it then show would be like 60-some%, maybe it's almost 70, 60-some% probably of total revenues.
At this point, I would think that we would be under 50% for the citations and recycling receipts, but we are above where we're supposed to be. You're right, the carry forward is, it has to go
Skews it.
somewhere, so it skews the numbers to where you really have to look at it close to be able to see what your numbers are. I mean, if it comes to it, I can't pull it out. I get a little bit nervous about pulling stuff out and making small changes like that because I'm afraid I'm gonna mess up, but I've done it before. And I can do it again if that's what the board wishes for me to do.
Maybe tuck it below there under total expenditures and then net change or something. I don't know.
I could, and I would take it out of the contractual services, that amount negative, so you can kind of see where contractual services are actually running. I can do that. At the next meeting, I can do that. Can't do it at the moment.
Well, it looks like we're real close on personnel. Is that up to date? Like we'll include all of the month of December, but if it's just November, we're gonna be short.
I would think that we would probably be, I don't know. That's a good question. Something to look at. If that's overtime,
Because you
I
got more people.
don't know, 49%. We do have more people, so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that was added to our original amended budget, so it could be that. So.
And the board can amend at any time, moving money around if
Well,
desired.
once it's been set, we can't really move money out of buckets.
You just worry about the
This
bottom
system
line.
is a lot different than the one that you left.
Okay,
You can spend out of cost centers that have a zero balance if it makes sense, but it will pull from that general budget bucket of funds. So I know that I'm not making any sense whatsoever.
no, I know what you mean.
Okay.
I've been doing that for so long. I understand all kinds of budgets.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
These are the expenses since that have hit the books since the last meeting. The biggest one is going to be the second biggest one is going to be household hazardous materials contract. Obviously, that we had a very substantial increase in our cost on that contract. We're kind of pigeonholed a little bit because really because they own the has-been facility itself, it's hard to bid it out and have someone else to come in because they don't have a facility. So eventually, what we would love to be able to do, and I'll throw this little pitch out there, is to build another has-been that's maybe can be owned by us. And that would help us to get a better price and be competitive. So something I may be posing in the future is some of those changes. Of course, we have other changes to do at the recycling centers as well. The other bigger price tag is for Raftellus, the financial consultants for the cost of services study. They continue to do their work. And this was just part of that contractual payment as the process goes forward. Other than that, there's really nothing that is over the $5,000 mark that would require prior approval. So everything in the contractual and the cost of services has already been approved at previous board meetings. So really no expenses to approve at this point.
All right. Can we get action on that?
I'll motion to approve the budget report.
Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move forward to the correspondence to the board, letter from KYTC.
Yeah, so as you guys remember, the board approved a letter to go to KYTC, making some requests to them or some suggestions that relates to litter cleanliness along our interstates. Having them fund some of the materials, some of the cleanups instead of us didn't really fly. Well, let me say this. You guys have had the letter. It's basically, we're doing all this. We don't have any additional funds. We thank you all for participating. And that's about it. So I don't know what else to say. This is, we will continue to work with the state KYTC to try to address the shortfalls of what happens on the interstates. Just for a real quick overview, we spend pretty close to 40-something% of our litter funds on cleaning the interstate, which is actually the state's responsibility. Imagine what we could do if we had it to be able to spend on our own roads. So it's not going to change. We fund 4 additional sweeps, and this board has been doing that for quite some time. Now we're working with Clean Collab, which Rob Lush is here. He's a Clean Collab coordinator. If we weren't doing that, the interstates would be way worse when they're not mowing. So thanks to you guys and the Clean Collab that we have that opportunity to do that. We're actually working with them to try to make sure that they make contracts that we can piggyback on to get services on their roads, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So that's where it's at. If anybody has any questions about the letter, I'll try to answer it, or Rob could try to answer it as far as what's going on there.
I have one. Have we, I know everybody's broke. I get it. I understand that. But have we reached out to this CEO nonprofit
That's exactly
on our own and see if we can not piggyback on the state's contract and make our own contract, and if need be, have them be our subsidiary, our sub. And
We have them. Well, Rob, do you want to
Yeah,
answer
so the
this?
CEO of the KYTC does use them, it's like especially around ramps, along the interstate. We've looked into it, but it just comes down to money, with their crews and also their equipment. CEO doesn't necessarily have the equipment to gather and dispose of it, so then once again, we're gonna have to send our crew behind it and pick it up. So it does come into, just funds available, but KYTC does use them. use Goodwill at times,
Mhm.
there's another way program to help out as well.
So basically, they're just labor, and we come back and pick up the bags.
As of right now, it's all, yeah, right, it's labor and KYTC handles the disposal. We've looked at it, I don't remember the cost now, it's been a while, but
Okay, but $250 for labor seems awful high.
it was pretty expensive that we just didn't have. And like I said, then we still.
No, this is what the state's
equipment
paying.
to pick it up.
And did I read this right?
Yeah.
That the
That's
state's
what
paying?
the state is paying,
State's
but it's
paying.
not like a litter sweep, because the other part of that, the money that we're paying for is also another contractor that they hire. So we're hiring their contractor, and I think we spent 550, so 1,000 last year to pay their contractor to clean additional times. on
Okay,
the
so okay, I'm real confused. Why we're hiring their contractor
Well,
for
if-
us? That don't make any sense to me.
Because the interstates, they maintain it, it's their contract, KYTC's, so they have the contract, but the way the contract's written, it allows us to piggyback off of it. So the
But
way
we're paying their rates though. We're paying what they negotiated, right? Not us.
Right.
We're
because
paying what they negotiated.
Right, we can't have our own contract on the interstate when they have a contract that does the same thing, it's their maintenance.
We're also not really allowed to go up on the interstates whatsoever.
I understand that. I
So
get
it's all
that part.
liability.
So if they have the contracting responsibility for the interstates, then don't they have a contracting responsibility for our interstate?
For our
I mean,
interstates,
for the interstates to run through
they
Louisville.
they do, and that's what we've been
Yeah,
supplementing.
it is their purview, but they're just saying that they
So they're
have limited funds.
saying they just can't do it.
Right.
It
Basically,
comes down to funding for them as well. Say that they're, based on the funding that they're given from the legislator, this is what they're able to.
So I was wanting to be clear that, so they have the rights to understand the responsibility to clean the interstate. What they're saying is they don't have the money to clean interstates that come through Louisville, so we have to clean it.
So they
And
do it
so-
during the summertime.
No, but
during
we
the
can't.
season, But you're right, so during the winter time, that's when
They say,
we
don't-
supplement it to pick up on that.
We're supplementing their contract with their people, with Jefferson County money to clean up an interstate that we can't go on. Did I get that right?
Is there like a higher authority to report?
Yeah,
that
'cause
kind of
that-
thing, too?
that-
It just
that-
feels like a
That
violation.
sounds,
Mm.
because I don't like paying for something I didn't negotiate. I just, I don't, that don't sit well with me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe like I said,
It's-
I wasn't here yet when this was done, but that don't,
It's unfortunate that that's the way it's been. When you get into the money, a lot of counties have these same needs, and
Mhm.
everybody gets their money kind of equally.
well, I get that part.
Our need is so much greater because we have way
Way
more people
way-
here.
Yeah.
But they are going to allocate those funds across the state as they see fit, which means we're not getting as much, if you ask me.
Well, let me ask you this, could there be, you just said we can't go on their interstate because it's their interstate. I get that part. Can we negotiate some waiver to get on their interstate to clean what goes through Jefferson County during the time that we need to clean it? Because if they're only gonna do four, I think I read 4 sweeps, and they're paying $250 in labor.
But
We need to be able to hold our own purse.
So the 250 for CEO is a separate organization that they utilize
Right.
when they're not having their bigger contractor come in. Their bigger contractor is out of Eastern Kentucky.
Right, so they have different contracts, so they have the mowing and litter collection contract, which is what we piggyback off of.
Mhm.
They also have CEO, which is a separate contract. And then they have another contract for landscaping, another contract for street sweeping. So they just have, they've got several of them.
Yeah, I mean, I see, that's what's busting my brain is they have a contract.
Right.
They have a contract. They have a contract, but we're paying that contract that they negotiated with whoever, X, Y, Z. And we have no authority on what that money is. We just gotta here's a check, oh, here you go. That doesn't sit well with me.
Basically what it comes down to.
One thought I
Alright,
had.
Can I
Go ahead.
interject real quick? Because I think that I have a question that I think we should probably move forward because it sounds like this
Yeah.
is something we're not gonna be able to really solve today. We could spend
True,
30 minutes on this alone.
true.
Is there maybe any like grant funding that we could leverage to kind of bolster what we're doing at least?
We do, as part of what the waste district gets is, I think it's about 380 or it was 400 this past year. All of that goes into the collection of litter, whether it's, hand collection on the city streets or along the interstates.
Is there any way to bolster that or any additional source of funding?
The
Yeah.
litter, it's through the Kentucky Pride Fund.
Right.
And what happens is it's based upon a statutory formula that allocates the money accordingly. Louisville at one point had 600,000. It is much less now because they redid the formula. It's based upon the number of road miles and several other factors that play into that. I don't know, at least from the Kentucky Pride Fund, I don't think that we're gonna get anything extra out of that.
So I would be curious to see if we could maybe find any other funding stream to at least help supplement that, maybe even like on a federal level. But I think, that's something that's going to
So
take. a
Sean, I'd
little
love to speak to that. So I think there is an opportunity if we address it differently, if we go at it as a workforce initiative.
Mhm.
So there's tons of dollars set aside to create and train, to create job opportunities in workforce. I mean, we're working through some of them now. So if we partnered and said, hey, we have a workforce opportunity, then I think that we could generate additional dollars because now we're training
Mhm.
and creating opportunities for people for new jobs. And I think then that's a whole different set of buckets. Just the work they would be doing would be then, the sanitation or the cleanup of highways and things like that. So we're doing several of those right now where we're asked to develop grants and programs to help create training to create jobs for folks, especially there's a significant opportunity with the immigrant population
Mhm.
because it's such a huge immigrant population right now and they're looking for jobs and work. So the workforce grants are coming out and they're saying, hey, if you train them for job opportunities, we'll give you money, more or less.
Yeah.
So
So
maybe
that's
there's-
exactly where I was going. Because of my recent employment
And
change.
there's some EPA grants specifically too that might be relevant there.
Yeah. So is that something that we could at least
We can-
investigate a little bit more?
We can look
going
into
the
it.
next.
We have done those types of programs in the past. It was obviously a little bit before COVID with very limited success. Part of it was people just not coming.
Mhm.
And, nobody wants to do it. And that was one of the things that we run into. Plus, if we are taking and having a inefficient program of collecting litter through that, and we're taking somebody that could be picking up litter, you're almost better off just letting that person pick up litter instead of having all the problems that we had previously. And I can't remember who that was through, but we will look at that.
Okay.
Okay, I will give you that.
All right. So that could be something that we just revisit January to February.
One, if I may, in addition to that, I think those are great ideas. Maybe something back up to the state. I mean, I'm disappointed that Jim Gray sent it to Matt Bullock because of course the answer was zero, nothing, because Matt Bullock's budget is so very tight. But another letter to the secretary that says, you're putting the budget together now for next fiscal year. Could this be something that could be considered, in a very nice way, for opportunities going forward in this?
We can always try again. I'm not optimistic.
No, I know.
We have worked with them a lot trying to build a partnership and expand on things. And, we've gotten some limited success. What I would say, if there's other entities out there, the more other entities that are out there sending them letters and and stuff like that, maybe they'll start listening. So if there's other opportunities or organizations that would like to also jump in, I think that would be a good idea.
Perfect. Let's move on to action items. We have lids for recycling dumpsters.
Okay, so the illegal dumping situations continue. We have not been able to install the cameras at this point. We've gotten some ideas on where we're gonna do them, but we haven't done that. However, at many of these sites, if you can take a look and see that center dumpster with the yellow lid, there was actually 2 lids, I think, at one point, but nope, that was a double. They're getting tore up. There's a locking bar on the front of this that if people can't get their stuff in there, they will rip the lid off around the locking bar, damaging the lid. Sarita, how many of these are in bad shape right now?
Probably out of the 79 dumpsters that we have, I would say probably 40 or 50 of them.
The answer is gonna have to be better lids. We hope to have better lids, like these, but also the cameras where we can get them, to be able to start catching some of these people, not only damaging the dumpsters, but illegal dumping.
Can we install the lids after those cameras go in? Or do we have a date for the installation for the cameras?
I don't, and it's gonna be individual as to what site. I know that we're meeting, you guys are gonna meet out at Hikes Lane Fire Department,
Yes.
with the fire department to get their permission and to see what kind and where we would install it there. I know we're going with Aiken Road, because we're having problems out there. Bethany and Fairdale, would you say that those are our
Target sites, yes.
target sites? We're working on it, to get those cameras there.
Looks like most of the debris that we're seeing in these pictures, just as one example, is illegally dumped material. I mean, oversized material that they're jamming in. I mean, are we getting any good recyclables from these?
We do,
Yes.
and the vast majority of the material that has been audited has been good. We're under that 5 to 8%, I think, in what's coming in. Sometimes that is pulling something out of there. Obviously we can't dump a couch in and take it to West Rock. So
Right.
some of it is that.
Mr. Chair,
Could
Mr.
we-
Chair, I make a motion that we accept the 13,175 cost for the lids.
Could we amend that to install those after the cameras are installed? So that we don't
I
One
don't,
question,
replace.
can we install them in locations where the illegal dumping is at a minimum? Meaning that we're not having as much problems with the illegal dumping, to go ahead and get those fixed. They've been out there for 4 years, I believe. Just getting some of them that are not likely to be damaged again, replaced would be a benefit to us.
Mr. Chair, I don't accept that change. My motion was to approve the cost, and I will amend it to install the lids that are most damaged and let them decide who goes first and how to put those in, not based on cameras.
Okay. So the motion is to approve the funding and replace the lids at the prioritized
Right.
spots first.
Yeah, to give us the
Yes.
flexibility
And
to
give
do
you,
that.
and give you the discretion.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? All right. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Let's go to new business, 2025 meeting schedule.
Oh, it got moved and I didn't notice. When I had to add the 2025 meeting schedule as a title, and then all my little things moved, even though they were supposed to be grouped, but whatever.
Is that
Um,
January 15th?
So use your imagination
19th,
and
22nd.
kind of move
22nd,
the
yeah.
calendar up. The little rectangle for February, is over the week that, the state conference is,
It's not-
yeah, it's okay. I wouldn't try.
So January is the 22nd?
Yeah.
22nd, yeah.
Okay,
February would be the 26th,
okay.
but Pete, if you want to, I don't know if you talked about the state conference thing being that same day.
I have not yet.
March 26th, April 23rd, May 28th. That is the week of Memorial Day. I just highlighted that in case that matters to anyone. June 25th, July 23rd, August 27th, September 24th, October 22nd, and then in November and December, we'll be in the same position as we were this year. And I think the idea was maybe to try to go ahead and just say, we will, whether we do this schedule like we did November and December, maybe just plan to do that again next year so that we already know. So aside from November and December, the only issue is going to be February if people are involved in this state conference thing that's going on, and then Memorial Day possibly.
Would it matter that our meetings start at 5:30 vis-a-vis the conference? Conferences are usually, you got probably dinners and everything else, right?
According to the schedule they sent, it was going to be
Yeah.
through the evening, but
What's the date of the conference?
25th, 26th, the 27th, and the starting in the afternoon of the 25th and ending by noon on the 27th.
It seems like for a tentative calendar,
That's fine.
amenable for me.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions or feedback about the calendar?
Well, do we want to make action now or do we want to wait? I mean, November and December obviously are going to be problems. May with Memorial Day may be a problem. I don't know if they're going anywhere, but
I think it's just something to look at or to
Yeah,
know.
just something to be aware of.
before, because we do have to make public notice if we're gonna change anything. We can't-
I'll make a motion to accept the calendar as I guess called out by Karen, and we'll adjust as needed in November and December.
Should we go ahead and decide about February since it's only a couple months away?
Just move it up a week.
I'm not sure how many people are gonna be on for that?
That's a good question.
I think we just go forward with it. We can make a
Those are
change
impacts.
in our January meeting if we needed to. That's a public meeting and we can make an adjustment to the February meeting. So do we have a second for the meeting?
second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is approved. Let's go to old business field trip contract changes.
Sorry, real quick feedback. Did you want to say anything about location or?
I was going to, obviously, I've been telling you guys that construction is going to start here in our building at any time. We don't know when it's going to happen. One of the locations that we're looking at is possibly to go back to MSD boardroom. I haven't made that request to them officially. In the past, the MSD boardroom is nice and it works really well for us. There is secure parking in a secure building, nice building. The drawback on that in the past was that we got kicked out at last minute a few times, which isn't really great for these meetings. But in my mind, at least when we get started on this construction here, if and when, this would be our fallback. Does anybody have any opposition to going to MSD?
What's
It's on
location?
Seventh Street, I think is
700
Liberty.
West.
700 West
700
Liberty.
with Liberty.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, no problem.
walk there almost. Yeah, sounds great.
I guess the only issue I see is, the reason I assume the board went to the, what was the software we've been using? WebEx, thank you. Do we want to go back to that?
Probably
As
not.
compared to,
We've had technology issues, barriers in the past, and when you meet in person, that kind of goes out the window. So if it were me, make the decision, I'd say, no, let's keep it in person and not worry about WebEx maybe interfering with a meeting.
That's the position of the board, I think.
Any further discussion about location? All right, let's move forward to field trip contract changes.
So last month, we started this conversation right at the end, so it was tabled till tonight. And this was I know it's kind of small on your screen, but hopefully you can see it. This was the package that they proposed to us when we asked for an annual to keep them kind of going. If we could have an annual, I can't think of the word, well, it's a retainer, but kind of a subscription with them so that they work with us throughout the year as opposed to just doing one big campaign each year that we've done the past 2 years. So, so these were the two options and what they included. And then on the second slide, just for reference, if I put the campaigns that we did, so It Adds Up was our first campaign, and it also, it kind of went from the end of 2022 to 2023. And you can see the cost for agency fees and then how much the actual media was we spent on. And then the Clean Together, you can see that shift where the agency fees were a lot lower. And that's because the very first time we worked with them, we had to kind of get to know them and they had to get to know our story. And so there was a lot more of that time paid for. And then we were able to put more money toward the media. So I just wanted you all to kind of see that difference in cost. The proposed options on the previous slide are just the agency fees. So any money that we put toward the media, like it's promoting social media, or if it's paying for any kind of ad space at all, whether it's streaming or billboards, bus shelters, et cetera. So the cost estimates for those are listed there, and some of the tips they gave us, which I had changed this on another slide. It's so funny. The bus shelter should say 300 to 500 per location. But anyway, so that gives you kind of an idea of what they suggested for some of the media and how it could cost. And she said the mini campaigns could, depending on what they are and how we choose to spend the money, could go from $1,000 for that media to $10,000. So it's just kind of how we, maybe even depending on the topic of, certain things you may not want billboards for.
Karen, have they given us any analytics on the success or failure or movement between the start of the campaigns and now?
Well, those campaigns were 3-month, like 90-day campaigns, and they did give us all of those analytics and we presented those at meetings. So I have that on files I can send to you for reference if you need, and how all the ads and everything went. So anyway, that I wanted to give you kind of a reference on the costs.
Just to jump in here, I think the metrics that they gave us were on things that they can measure, like impressions, clicks,
Yes.
things like that. What I would be interested in long-term is behavior changes, or, material results linked to a historical, like a period of time, like before and after this. We saw a noticeable or a change that had a level of significance high enough. I mean,
Well, I
that's kind of
totally-
like an econometric study.
I do understand what you mean, and to be able to measure our success has always been very difficult when it comes to this, because, the people that are in this every day, the amount of litter that is out there has decreased. Seem like we pick up less. But when you decrease from 50 pieces of litter to 25 pieces of litter, the perception is it's still litter. So you don't get anywhere. And one of the things that we did was the litter perception survey, which I thought was very telling, in that 92% of the people feel like that litter is a significant or severe problem in Louisville Metro. I'll come to find out that pretty much mirrors the national numbers too. So I think you're right. Where we can measure stuff, we should. We track the number of complaints, although that was problematic. We are tracking the miles cleaned, the amount of litter picked up, which I think, Rob, do you want to talk about the amount picked up per cleaning anymore?
Yeah, I don't remember the percentages right now, but over the past 3 years, we have seen that we've increased the amount of miles that we're cleaning with a decrease in the amount of trash that we're picking up. So, it's hard to say what, because you have so many efforts going on, it's hard to link it to one thing, like saying,
Sure.
we saw this decrease due to field trip or whatever the case is, but,
Right. Yeah, I mean, there are going to be several things that you can attribute that change to.
Right.
I mean, it could be demographic changes, it could be education changes. But I found that like impressions, for example, are not necessarily the end all be all, because it could be on your screen. Just because on your screen, that doesn't mean that you're
Absolutely.
looking at it
I agree with
necessarily.
you. What I will say is that a thing that I brought to you guys not too long ago was a program called City Detect.
Yes.
That is still under consideration. I believe with codes and regs, they're the main driver under this. We did get a little bit of a pilot information, not a lot. But that is another avenue that I think we're going to be able to utilize. The cost was a little bit more than what I thought. If it was a 50-50 split between us and codes and regs, we would be in the pocket for about 180-something thousand a year, which is pretty steep. I don't know who gets the biggest benefit out of it. I think that there can be benefit found with multiple agencies. Where all the potholes are, is where the graffiti is, where there's high grass. All those things are things that could be done with this. So I don't think it should be looked at as just a waste district or a SWIMS type of a thing. I think that more people need to get involved in that, which would bring everybody's load in covering that down. But hopefully that's going to be figured out by the next budget cycle. If there is a reasonable request for that as far as funds, I would bring it to you guys as the board to approve those funds and know exactly what you're getting for those funds. But that is a hard measurement of how much litter is out there. It might still look littered, but there's less litter statistically. So we just have to continue down the track.
So Pete, I'm sorry.
I was just going to try to kind of guide us back to the agenda item that we're on, which is the marketing.
I mean, I understand, I apologize. I understand that, you and your staff don't have time to do this, and I agree. You got more other important things to take on. But I think the last time we talked about this, there was a discussion, brief as it was, about a possibility of a person on staff, a new person hired to do this. And, this is not full-time, for a person from field trip. to do it. If somebody was full-time, then they could take on some of the thing you mentioned, Sean, and some of the other things that could potentially be helpful going forward, in addition to dealing with this, and save hopefully some money.
It seems like our budget's pretty robust. I mean,
So some of the things that we've done before, especially when you're looking at analytics, is we do pilots to figure out what works. So when you do a general mass program, like you say, well, who knows what works? We see some changes, but where do we know where they're coming from? And so what I was thinking is, well, so one is, have we looked at breaking down our complete map, area that we cover, and are there certain things going on in certain areas, and then are there targeted pilots for those areas? So we might not want to have a program that says, hey, pick up your litter, to a area that picks up the litter, but they don't recycle. You know, if that's the area, then we want recycling messages. We don't want pick up your litter messages. And so I'm wondering if there's any opportunity there to talk to Field Trip about maybe looking at doing more targeted for areas, which they would have to work with, obviously, you guys, and say, hey, and then we can now kind of figure out like what messages are working or what tactics are working in different areas versus doing a general spread and not knowing what's working and what's not working, but we're still paying X amount of dollars and just with a general spread.
To be clear, the Field Trip does not have to only do litter campaigns.
Right,
That's
right, right.
just what we've done. And if you go, Pete, why don't you stay on the other slide that shows those proposals? Because we can't move forward with asking them what these mini campaigns or anything look like without paying them. So this is kind of where we wanted to start.
Yeah, and to Carl's point, just a minute, I think that you're right on target. We are looking at targeted campaigns, even with certain neighborhoods that we have went into. And it's not just a social media thing. We're talking about door to door.
Right.
And those types of campaigns. And where we've done that, we've seen significant improvement. So that is going to work in some areas versus not in other areas. And I think that's where you're getting to. We need to be able to develop the collateral for things like that. And, you know, we have the very targeted door to door, but we need that same consistent messaging on a little bit broader scope in that area, not the full city, but that same area. And you're starting to get you're starting to change the culture of that neighborhood towards one of cleanliness.
If you don't mind, real quickly, let me give you a real quick example, and this is brought to mind. So we did a campaign in 3 cities that's not here. So it's Philadelphia, DC, and Baltimore. And the entities we were working for had penetration problems in terms of messaging. And so what we did is we broke down the cities by demographics and a number of other things. And then we made educated guesses basically about what type of things based off of what we knew, right? So we knew there were certain things that had about economics and things like that. So we made, and then we had budgets set aside for each group. So we said, we're going to spend $10,000 and try this campaign here, right? And it didn't work. So then we said, okay, we can spend another $10,000. Should it keep the same thing going? And we said, we're going to switch it up. We're going to still spend $10,000, but now we're going to do a different campaign. And we kind of pushed and pulled until we find out, and then we massage it until we have the right campaigns for the different areas. We didn't spend any more money in the different areas. We just broke it up, and then we just said, we're going to spend money and see what kind of traction that we have. And so some of them had more traction when we did kind of high touch engagement where people were not door to door and put things and do it. Others were more tech where we did social media and whatever. So we had to find what mediums and what methods worked. Without, we didn't spend more money, we just spent the money differently. Instead of just doing one blanket campaign, we're gonna do social media for everybody. So, oh, we can't tell, some it worked, some it didn't. So anyways, that's just a thought.
I feel like that's where we're going to go.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion. I want to make a motion for option 1 with 2 caveats. Under creative overflow, I'd like to change the upper limit to 30 hours to actually help with changing the campaigns that Mr. Bradley was talking about. And on the reporting part, instead of monthly, make that quarterly. Up to 15,
Quarterly here.
I want to go quarterly there and then 30 on that one. And that should be a wash in the numbers. That's my motion.
You got those, Karen?
Mhm.
We can take that back to field trip. If you want to approve it at that rate, we can tell them, say, this is what the board approved.
Mhm.
If you don't accept this, then we would have to go back to the board.
But to me, that sounds like that would be a wash. I think that would take that.
Okay?
I really
You know
do.
more about it than I do.
Yeah.
So the motion is to approve option one at the price quoted of $80,900
Yes,
with the change from up to 15 hours to 30 under
Correct.
creative overflow
yes,
and quarterly instead of monthly under reporting.
correct.
Do we have a second on this motion?
I second. Since we gotta take it back to them to see what they're gonna say. So
Right.
it's gonna be based on
Yeah.
them, so it's not, so I think it's good for us to present it, and then we'll see what they say.
Right.
So we gotta come back and adjust
What-
it.
So but this motion is to approve it
Right.
At that
as
time.
long as it's at that.
Right. So they could come back
Okay,
and
I
not
just wanted to
accept
be
it
clear.
and come back with another option, and then we discuss the other.
Let me,
Okay.
let me amend that, Mr. Chair. Let's let Mr. Flood and his team go 10% either way on that 80,009 for that change without coming back to us,
10%, so basically up to $90,000.
roughly, yeah. Without coming back to us, because we don't meet again until January,
Okay,
correct?
Mhm.
all right, so we have an amendment to
To my
the
motion.
motion
Mr. Bradley, you agree with
to
that? Yes.
go. One, to go up to $88,990.
Yes.
Okay. And you're seconding that as well. All right, opening up for any questions or feedback.
I'm gonna vote no on that motion for a couple of reasons. One, it's too much money, in my humble opinion.
Point of order.
And,
Point of order. You can vote no, but we haven't voted it.
no, I know that.
We're
I'm just
it's
saying what
discussion.
my current, yeah,
It's
exactly.
discussion.
I'm not saying I'm not voting no right now. I'm just part of the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying that if this continues as is with a second, I will vote no against that for the cost being too high and the workload too low. I think we could do a lot better potentially with our own staff and get a lot more work done.
Can I make a comment to that?
Yes, and then I have a semi-rhetorical question, but I'll.
So to have a staff person to be as skilled in all of the different disciplines that we're talking about, I'm not sure that we're gonna be able to get. We may over time be able to get to a point where we understand this stuff good enough to where we can take on some of this work. I think we, at least in the first year, should move forward this way because we're gonna learn a lot and hopefully be able to reduce our cost in the future. But one person, I don't know that we're gonna get enough bandwidth from that person or in everything that needs to be done expertise-wise to be able to get that in just one person. I'm not in the field, but I think that's what I understand, so.
It would be, yes. I think a person would be great. It would be tough to match what a company can do in all the different disciplines. Working in that area, it'd be real tough unless somebody just wanted to be your friend and work for really cheap. But somebody who could do all that, their rate would be really higher than that. So
We make that.
A marketing coordinator right now makes like somewhere between like $40,000 and $60,000. Marketing managers make between like 50 to 80 or so. So I think there would be some value in that, especially from a full-time standpoint. Kind of the rhetorical question, and perhaps we revisit this after a year and we have some results, is, is Field Trip the best agency to help us achieve our objectives? Maybe there's another agency that would be more effective and have, more effective reporting, create more collateral that we can just have on the shelf for us to pull out independently and use on an ongoing basis.
So Sean, let me add to what you're saying. So in the marketing field, primary thing is understanding your market and what you have to do to get to them. So there's still a lack of understanding of what works. So the first thing you have to do is understand what works. And then you have to be proficient in terms of being able to execute that message. So if I know that what the issues is and what works, then can I execute that efficiently and cost effectively, right? And so I think we're still at the very genesis of, we don't know what works. So we're spending money and we get some back and we say, but did we get a good return on the money? Well, we don't know. We don't have necessarily the proper analytics because we're doing wave campaigning. We're taking one campaign, we're putting over multiple different entities, and we're saying like, we think we got something, we're not really sure. And believe me, agencies do this all the time. They'll throw money at something and say, we're doing a little bit of everything. Something's going on. We're not sure what, but something's going on, right? And I think this is a little bit different because of the demographics, the diversity of demographics from neighborhoods and everything that's going on. There's going to be different messages and campaigns that's going to be necessary to really be effective. And so it would be nice to know that in District A versus District C, we're doing two different campaigns.
Right.
But both of them are effective because we know who we're targeting and we know what works, versus doing one campaign over all the districts and not really sure what's working and what's not working. And so that was where I was coming from, and I think an agency would be necessary to try to help maybe begin to find it out because of their capabilities. They could probably move a lot faster than one person. And then once we figured it out, then I think you're right on point, Sean, in terms of then we could ask the question, is Field Trip, the right AC, or are they doing it more effectively? Because there's different agencies that are better doing different things than others. So.
Yeah, and I do want them or us to be aware, like you're saying, communicating through the right channels, and being more targeted in our approach. We had that the heat map that we created based on zip codes of the survey respondents. Tools like that should kind of be our North Star, is like where we direct our efforts and where we have more problem areas, stuff like that. And even maybe getting involved with schools, with like high schools, and having some kind of educational component or partnership with them. So, sometimes we have to think outside of the box versus just like going billboards and bus stops and social. You might need to kind of flex that a little bit to also like a partnership with some other entities as well.
Agreed about branching out. I think that we do that somewhat. Maybe not a lot of people know everything that we do. I know that we have Brightside. Lori is here.
She is a lead.
Okay, Lori from Brightside. They have programs that go into the schools, and we kind of tend to want them to be in that arena. But it's not as though that we can't do some of that as well. I just want to say I love this conversation tonight. I've learned quite a bit, and I hope that you guys approve it as it is, so that the next year we're going to learn a lot. Staff is going to learn a lot. And the last point I would make to ask for the passage of the motion is that if we hire one person, we're not in a position where we can really direct them and tell them because we don't have the expertise. If I was a marketing person that I could give them direction on whether they're going right or wrong, I just don't have the expertise to do that at this point. So I would ask that the motion be passed.
All right. And we'll have a vote on the amendment and the motion. I think that's proper Robert's Rules of Order.
I know I wasn't here the entire year. I was appointed towards the latter part of the year. So I didn't see their input earlier on, but with the stuff that I did see, I was not impressed. And then, you know, the billboards or whatever else out in the community, I didn't see them. I get around. And the other thing, your points, Sean, were great, you know, that you just brought up a couple of minutes ago. They're not going to do that for that price. If you want somebody to do that, it's going to cost a lot more, or have one of our people do it, you know, person on staff. I mean, they're great ideas. I love them. But
All right, Mr. Chair, I call a question. Question on the motion.
Okay.
We're ready to go. The question is approved, we have to vote.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we're gonna vote on the amendment. So vote on the amendment first, then we'll vote on the motion.
you want to read it?
First. He's the first. Who was the second on that, Carl?
Yes, for both the motion and the amendment.
Okay.
Can you read it again? Do we know what the wording is?
The amendment is that option one is up to $88,990. And that under creative overflow, which is the third from the bottom, for hours to be used for creative needs, up to 30. For reporting, it's going to go from monthly to quarterly. All right, so we're going to vote on the amendment first. We can do a voice vote for the amendment, and I think we should do a roll call vote for the motion, since it is a significant amount. All right, all those in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Any opposed, no?
No.
And the amendment passes. All right, and now we're going to start on the motion to approve this approach with field trip. So I'll start to my left. Alex,
Yes.
Brian,
No.
Yes.
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 all right. The yeses have it, and the motion is approved.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to, and we are just to keep us on time. We are at 6:30 almost. Cost of services study update.
So not a whole lot of update. We met with Raf Tellis this past week or so. It was a very short meeting that was basically set in the point of, hey, we're gathering the data. We've gotten most everything from home rule cities. We're in the process right now and have gotten a lot of information from HOAs, and we have broken down the subscription area into 5 areas and have started to make calls for those. You can see that one of the options that we did talk about prior to that was that we wanted to have statistically significant data that is defendable. And they assured us by going with option 3 that we would get a 95% confidence level for each one of these zones, so that we would have good material to look at. What I would say is, we're going to meet again after the first of the year. They tell us that they will have a lot more data and information at that point. I'm not sure if that gets brought back yet, but that's where we're at. It's a very short update. The process is continuing to move forward.
All right, feedback on that? Just reminder that we're at 6:30.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try to keep it real brief. How were those 5 areas selected?
They have a data analyst using GIS levels. They felt like that based upon their experience that these areas would make the most sense. I will let them defend that, because I don't want to put words into their mouth. But, you know, my understanding generally is that you have a predominantly subscription area that's wide. You have areas that are closer to contracted areas that may have different costs. So I think they're trying to look at the way waste is collected based upon their knowledge of doing these types of calculations where they feel like they can get the best information for what we need. So I would let them to be able to answer that question.
So, because it looks to me like, I mean, it depends where each of those, a little over 1,000, 1,200, 1,500-ish homes that they're going to be contacting are within each of those areas, but that's a fairly urban group. I don't see any rural or suburban. Preston, maybe.
You would get,
Shelbyville, maybe, but again, that's fairly more urban and whatnot over there.
I think that the Dixie Highway is probably one of the most rural. I think that you're right. Preston is also got the suburban areas that's more, you get Fairdale, Okolona type areas, which is very few, I guess, home rule cities in that area. Shelbyville, once you get out past a certain point, it does some of that. So, yeah, I wish I could give you a little bit better feel for that, but I don't feel like, I feel like if I guess, make a guess on something like this, I could say something wrong. So I think I would prefer just to let them defend how they're doing it.
Mr. Chair,
Question about the distribution and sample sizing. So right above the total population by zone with each targeted sample size is a commitment to precision. And this method ensures that smaller zones like Oakland Market receive adequate representation, avoiding skewed or unreliable results. Well, I think by vastly overrepresenting Oakland Market, we are skewing the results. If we have a population of 682 in
Okay.
Oakland Market,
Oakland Market is kind of a funny area. And I kind of looked at that as well. It sits, when you look at the city, it sits where you have the urban services district that extends down. It's like a narrow focus on the outside. It's more like Lake Dreamland outside of the city of Shively down to Pleasure Ridge Park in the upper part. So it's the area that's closest to the city, between the city and the Ohio River. I believe that's why they kind of pulled that one out separately, because it was kind of unique in what it was doing. So the sample size would still, it has a 313 data points for 1,600 homes. Seems like a lot, but that's what they needed to do to achieve a 95% confidence rate in that area as well. So again,
it seems
Mr. Chair, do we have any time in the next 3 months to have Raptalis come in and just speak to us for 10 minutes on how they?
can we get them in February?
Sure. Because I'm with you.
Yeah, this is not like when I
do
when I
math,
do,
that's
uh,
a little
statistical and
that's a little different,
econometric studies, you remove outliers or you
Right.
per capita
right.
measure it. And if we look at this from a percentage standpoint, I can't make an honest decision based on results of this if it's heavily skewed by Oakland Market. I know it's an important area. But if it heavily skews it and then we make a decision based on that, then it would be like giving Montana 9 electoral votes
Right, yeah. That, I'm with you.
You know what I mean?
Because if you look at Dixie and open market, you're only 68 different homes different. And they're 42,000 homes different. So that's a lot. That's a bunch. So, yeah.
So let's try to get them in
Yeah, we can
February.
get them in, yeah.
February or January if we can.
Well, I know
February or March.
JCLC, no, they wanted representation from here to go to the JCLC meeting in January.
In January.
So that's something we can bring up in other business.
I'd say February or March.
Okay.
To come in.
They're gonna get fairly far along. Don't want to get them too far along in their process.
Well, what the process?
Well, we've already approved the
Yeah,
process.
yeah, we're not stopping the process,
Okay.
but I do have a question on how they came up with that.
I got you.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I told them that everything that they're doing is gonna have to be defendable.
Yeah.
So
But that's,
they sure me
It's
they.
gonna be scrutinized.
yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
That's different.
I would say that I told them that. They will be scrutinized.
We're good.
Okay. Let's move on to securing your load enforcement campaign.
Okay, some of the things that we've been working on is securing our load, which includes 2 tracks. One is specific to haulers of waste and trying to make sure that they have their loads covered as required by the law. So there's been a huge amount of discussion about this. We are working on, as far as the SWIMS and Department of Public Works, is to be able to cite based upon 51-503, and it's if you're hauling a waste down the road, we can cite. Our challenge has been having somebody capture it on film. So we are actually looking at installing cameras in certain locations to be able to catch that. As part of that, we're going to be communicating with haulers before this goes out. So here we go. We're sending this out. You've got a month. Make sure that all your vehicles are covered, all your covers are working. Make sure your employees are trained and ready to do this. We are going to begin enforcement. We have somewhat already started enforcement because we've cited multiple people so far, but they're the clear ones. The other part of this that we're working on is continuing to work on the ordinance to clarify it, make sure that we're going to be okay in this process. We believe that we are. So this is a letter that's going to be going out to all the haulers. And I do want to tell you, this same letter in a little bit different formats went out to all metro government departments because we need to lead by example. So that has definitely been put out there. Another thing that we're starting to do already is put in snippets into our Works Week and social media, secure your loads. This is just a quick little draw up that we have because we really want to start getting the message out there. It's really simple. And this is, I don't know if you guys can see this. It's that we're starting to clean the interstates. Remember, litter isn't getting there on purpose. Litter isn't getting there on purpose. Make sure to secure any trash in your vehicle. So we're taking the waste hauler side, but we're also talking about more of a general campaign for covering your load if you have a pickup truck or however. So it's all the different ways that we're trying to attack the problem of litter.
And for the secure your load and the legislation behind that, can that or is that expandable into just carrying anything? Yeah, because I sent something to Deputy Mayor George earlier where there was a truck with a whole bunch of logs and no tailgate, nothing covering this thing at all. That thing goes over a heavy bump and one of those logs flies out on the interstate and maybe kill somebody.
So you bring up a really good point. Waste has a definition. And when it comes to transporting waste, it's basically if it's going to the landfill. If it's not going to a landfill, and it's all one type of waste. It's not going to be sorted, anything else. It's tended in KRS to be a recovered material and not a waste, which hurts us when it comes to our ordinance saying it's waste. A perfect example of this with a lot of the cameras that we're looking at, we're seeing people that are out there getting metal and their trucks are stacked with metal. So we haven't got to this, Robbie, but whether or not that we can cite somebody that's hauling a recovered material is a question that I have right now, and I don't want to move forward until we understand what we can and cannot cite. So recovered material in KRS is an important thing. So I agree with you. We need to be able to expand it.
I mean, another example would be used pallets.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So I also want you to understand that just because we are focusing on these loads here of waste, there is still a lot of work to do on being able to cite for litter. There was the ordinance was changed to make it civil several years ago. There's been discussion back and forth about can we cite criminally at this point. We have some county attorney opinions that says we can do it in this instance, but we can't in other instances. We just haven't built out the mechanisms to make this thing work. So it's going to be a continued effort for us to be able to get back to where we can start enforcing things the way that they need to be.
Great.
All right, anything else on secure load?
No.
Okay. Reasonable accommodation for waste services.
At the last meeting, Sarah Lynn Cunningham from the advisory committee brought an issue to the board. There was also a letter, if you guys remember, from the Center for
Accessible living.
Accessible Living. At that meeting, we discussed back and forth whether or not that a regulation was needed. And the board gave us the task of getting with the private haulers, the haulers in the town to see what their policies were. So I've received responses from each one, including a municipality. Reasonable accommodation, all of them offer some form of reasonable accommodation, ranging from a formal process to a less formal process. That less formal process was in the municipality that was small and much more manageable than, say, 60,000 accounts. So it ranged from you have to submit a doctor's note to you have to give us evidence and so on. Charges for the accommodation, generally no charges. There were two haulers that may charge if they have to go around to the back of the house, with one of them specifying that any accommodation would amount to a $5 extra per month charge. Access, one hauler stated they will not go into any gated fenced area, which I can totally get, or into a garage to get it, which I totally get that as well. Others stating they may charge if they have to go. I think I put that twice. I'm sorry. I have received some documented policies, but I haven't got them all. Some of them are under legal review to make sure that they're stating it right. So I don't think that we have a final answer on this. I think it's on everybody's radar. But I think that we need to make sure that everybody's aware that if you have the need for a reasonable accommodation, until we can find something that gets us all under the same understanding, we as a waste district can advocate for that person to help them get the services that they need by reaching out and being a liaison between them and whoever. We can also hope that we can put this out to a lot of the League of Cities as something that's pending, and possibly also get something, I don't know what we can put on our website yet, but as soon as we do, I think that we have the duty to put that out there. Once we have all the information, I think that's when we can make a decision whether there needs to be regulation or not.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like these services are already standard in these contracts. I mean, I've reached out to several waste haulers. I reached out to St. Matthews. they actually do pay extra for it. So whoever you got was misinformed.
Of course, if they return my calls or even accept my calls, this might have gone a little more smoothly.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's not paying.
But I reached out and I got somebody right away. So sometimes it's just also like the way that you ask the question, and they may misinterpret it as a completely different thing. Like, are we offering as a standard backdoor service? Maybe that's how it was interpreted. But from what I see, it looks like regulation would be completely unnecessary right now, and it wouldn't really move things forward. So that would be my attitude at this
The
point.
ones that are under legal review for even giving you a statement on what's in their own contract, did they say what they were reviewing? Because that seems awful odd to me.
No,
Okay, that's
no.
different.
I would like to respond to that. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The ADA regulation is quite complex,
It is.
and to be in compliance with it, with our opinion, to current up the flagpole to legal. Corporate legal will then release their opinion as to what our policy is or should be. We operate in many different geographies, and if we have an east region and west region, we're in the midst of trying to make sure all of our policies are consistent. And it's a privately owned company. We've got, brothers in different areas that may differ in opinion. So we are trying to get a response from corporate legal in that regard.
Okay.
But to say that, I was able to, mend fences with a customer, as Sarah Lynn brought to my attention. And she has been taken care of in St. Matthews with no extra charge.
So I want to say my beef is not with Rumpke. My beef is with the city of St. Matthews, who told her repeatedly things that weren't legal, like put your recycling in your trash and ask your neighbor to come move your trash can around for you. That's bogus. So that's a separate issue. They're not in this room. But what I want to say is, how many of you, for example, saw the extensive series in the Courier Journal last week about the number of high school and middle school coaches who sexually abused their their players? And what they found was most school districts did not comply with the federal law. They were not putting on their website anywhere, much less prominently, this is whom you're supposed to call in order, if this problem happens, who's supposed to take responsibility for protecting you. So my
Relevance.
attitude is, what?
Can we, just a point of order for relevance, please?
The relevance is, I think in the end, we should not ask our citizens to have to know whom to call. It should be on every municipality's website prominently. If you have a disability that impairs your ability to receive the services for which you're paying taxes, here's whom you call, and they ought to answer the phone.
St. Matthews has city meetings, so that would be something to bring to their meeting.
So you're asking me to do that?
You're a citizen of St. Matthews, right?
I am not. I'm advocating for a former classmate of mine, but by extension, given the walls that I have encountered trying to help her, I'm advocating that this board ask all of these municipalities to comply with federal law. Then you don't need to pass a local ordinance. But as long as they keep acting like they get to charge people $5, I think I'm gonna keep being a crank or go to the media.
Okay, that seems slightly ineffective without going to the source. They have complete resources like people who are dedicated to the website and everything like that. So that could be something that if you do bring it directly to them, then they can amend that. And they have a significant presence in Jefferson County. So on top of
What are
that,
you talking about? I can't even understand what you're saying.
the city of St. Matthews, which is at the root of this issue, they have a pretty robust staff. They have people who take care of their website. They have people who do a lot of different items. So if you bring this directly to them at a meeting, which is I think would probably be the most effective thing, then I think we can at least on that side get things resolved very quickly. I've also suggested that we disseminate information from Jefferson County League of Cities to all cities with some guidance for things like this, like ADA compliance and the reasonable accommodation, how to communicate that to your residents. So that kind of stuff is being done, but I don't think that the approach right now is to strong arm different subdivisions or cities into doing this kind of thing. We can probably get much more compliance simply by collaborating with these entities.
I'd say one thing, we're not quite there yet. We haven't got all of our information yet. So we're not sure what we can require, what we can't require. I do believe that we have the duty to make sure that everyone is aware of this issue at the small cities and across the community wherever we can. I think we have a duty to do that. Now, the thing between how we go about that, I personally feel like that we can talk and try to solve these one-offs that come up, which I think we're doing, but we're not quite there to have an answer as to how we fully need to approach this, whether it be regulation or strongly suggested language or however we go about that. We're not even sure what the legalities totally are. So I just would say we need to continue on our process.
So let me ask a question. It seems like, and I'm not clear because I'm now trying to process it, that your request is that we make recommendations to all the cities that this would be something they would entertain in terms of putting information on their websites.
Well, my thought has evolved based upon the pushback that I'm getting. And so I would love to see the board make an ordinance that municipalities who are providing waste management collection have to post an ADA accommodation prominently on their website. Because I'm really articulate and I know how to work. I'm a retired civil servant. I know how to work in government. They told me they wanted to talk to me about resolving this, but they wouldn't take a message. They wouldn't return my calls. They didn't call me.
So my question would
That's
be,
ridiculous.
my question would be, is that a legality? Now I'm wondering like where our abilities to, enforce an ordinance or whatever, where the gray area
Right.
that is.
So I'm not asking the board to enforce a federal law because that's not appropriate. But just as in Kentucky, we have entities in theory who make sure that school districts post information on how they're complying with federal law to prevent coaches from abusing kids, we could do that too, I would argue. That's perfectly appropriate for us to say.
Yes.
It seems reasonable to me either as a request of them or a requirement. I mean, I think just having that information out there for people
You got a
that's
question in the
easily
back.
accessible.
Same.
I'm not disagreeing with anything, but I want to go back and totally agree with Pete. Right now, I'm not sure we know what a reasonable accommodation is, because even looking at this, there are a number of different pathways. And I'm not sure right now we know which of those pathways meets the requirements. I mean, some are charging, some are going into the backyard. What is a reasonable accommodation? Grouping 80 small cities and making a single charge right now, I'm not sure we're ready for.
I think once we get there, I believe that what we should do is create a standardized message that could be displayed in wherever we should suggest that goes onto websites. Not just municipalities, but making sure that HOAs understand the same thing on our website. So I think once we can nail this thing down all the way, then I think that we can create a snippet that is easily cut and paste to be put onto these locations. Once we get there, we can decide if there needs to be additional, if this needs to turn into a regulation or not. Sometimes it could be based upon pushback. I'm not putting that on my site. Or however we want to go about it. I don't see anybody, to be honest with you, not wanting to put something like that on their website. So I think everybody here wants to accommodate everybody. I think we're talking about a small number of people that justifiably have an issue. And, you know, we're not even sure how many people truly have this issue or they don't know about this issue. So I think we just got to get a little bit further down this path for us to be able to make decisions.
One last question.
Well, one thing I would like to say, if you have not read the ADA regulation, please do so. Sarah Lynn has helped educate me, and I researched the ADA regulation myself. It's not a quick read. It's very all-encompassing. I don't know that there's any regulation that we as a board can pass that's not covered under the federal ADA regulation. It is truly all encompassing. And to the point where you cannot even question the ADA status.
Right.
So, I mean, you have to be quite cautious in dealing with it, not be in violation of it. So,
If there's some, and I know that we're running close on time, if there's somebody that would be a expert in ADA compliance that could give us some information, come to speak to us in 5 or 10 minutes, that might be beneficial to everybody.
Excuse me, have we engaged our ADA coordinator, Sarah Teeters?
We have not.
Okay, I
Was-
just sent an email, so you're linked with her, but my question would be, have we engaged Metro's ADA coordinator? And if so, that would be an avenue for some of this.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. For those that don't know, Deputy Mayor Nicole George.
Okay. So still a little bit to learn on this. No action required at this time. And maybe we'll be able to figure out kind of what the scope of need is across Jefferson County before creating action. Next, the advisory committee report.
We have very little time to be able to do it.
I mean, what we're working on is that, as we did last month as well, is that idea of offering a grant application process.
Hmm.
So we just continued that work, and I think that we will just keep on doing that. I don't think there's any more really to say. We don't have anything.
in a short period of time, a lot of great ideas. It's just capturing those and trying to build a program to bring to you for approval, knowing that it's going to come back to us for evaluation and recommendations. It's not an easy process.
Of course.
It doesn't matter whether it's $10,000 or $10 million.
Mhm.
You know, there's regulations that we have to follow, procedures we have to put in place, and criteria with regard to competitive grants. So
I don't envy you.
it's a great challenge. I think it goes on along the lines of, you know, innovation incubator that you spoke of. And somebody brings a great idea, you know, we want to support them while we can. But they're not going to be able to do it with the amount of money we're offering. Sarah Lynn brought up a great example of recycling mattresses by heating the mattress in a confined space, killing all the bed bugs or any other, you know, varmint in the mattress, and then reutilizing those. And it is going on. And we should be able to support
Yeah.
causes like that. But it's still in its infancy. It's a great challenge for the advisory committee, and, you know, we will continue to work on it.
Thank you. Staff report.
Well, what I would, Karen, is go ahead.
We just
Your
wanted to
person.
introduce our new public education supervisor, Rachel Young.
Thank you all. Welcome. Hi, I'm Rachel Young. I'm the education supervisor. I'm really excited to be here. I've been here about 3 weeks. I'm coming from a different metro agency, so I've kind of been in government for a few years now. And I'm excited to be here and to get to work with you all, and I've appreciated this introduction to the 109 board. Yeah, so I'll be working with Karen's team and thinking strategically about what our education strategy looks like for 2025 and on.
What was your previous position?
Most recently, I was a naturalist at Jefferson Memorial Forest, but I've also been a classroom teacher and worked in education in a few different sites. So I'm glad to be.
Great. All right, thank you. And illegal dumping enforcement?
Really quick, the signs that you guys voted on, we received them now? We're starting to get them out in the community, kind of label them so we know exactly where they're at. But we want to let you all know that we are out there trying to get after illegal dumpers. We just had one site that we have 20 vehicles that we're looking for off of Cane Run Road. These are some of the things, and typically when you get out into the county, the dumps are much bigger. This one is one that's been pretty bad for quite some time. Actually, on this picture here, you can see a person pulling off 2 dead deer. We not only are going after them for illegal dumping, but Fish and Wildlife, we notified Fish and Wildlife, and they have went after them as well. They don't live in Jefferson County, but we know when their court date is for that, so we'll be paying them a visit on that day so that we can impound their vehicle and serve ours.
Perfect.
So those things and some of the social media posts that are coming out that our team is doing related to the times, Christmas holidays, and social media. Never blow or rake your leaves into the street. We're trying to get this stuff out there. I just want to make sure that you all are aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good stuff.
And then that was it for me. That's
All right, thank you. All right, next announcements. 109 board meeting, January 22nd at 5:30. Advisory committee meeting on January 15th at 4:30. I did want to just really quickly bring up the JCLC meeting. They're just requesting some representation. Of course, I'll be there, but
yeah,
as a board member.
I wanted to speak to you before I committed to it.
Outside that.
I just wanted to get a little bit more information on it.
Okay, perfect. All right,
Sean, what date is that?
the JCLC meeting. Something like JCLC. Should be on January 16th.
At
the
City of London.
Yeah, Linden City Hall. And if it was the board meeting, which I think it was, not the member meeting, I think it's the board meeting, which is at 5:30.
Okay.
No, I think it was the general meeting.
Was it the general meeting?
Okay. Let me see if I can share that.
You need a D after agreed.
Yeah, that's not my words.
Oh.
This is an email,
Yeah,
so
7 o'clock, so it's
Seven.
a general meeting.
Okay, that's what he was.
Can see that, wait,
Yeah, listen, I'm blind as a bat, I have glasses on.
So if we could just have a conversation after the meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions or feedback? Get a motion to adjourn?
Make motion.
Second?
Second.
I think Pete tribute to you. All in favor? Please say aye. All right, meeting's adjourned.
It's true, you're on.
So if they have the mattress thing, and if they have this heater that could be portable, then we can